Hi y'all, I'm Christy B and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Christy.
By God's grace, I've been sober since November 20th, 2005. I'm real grateful for that, and it's always a pleasure to attend speaker night. It's especially special tonight. I remember when Christa came to AA and came to this group, and she would sit kind of by the door and very sad and angry and crying, and I could relate. She looked just like me years ago. And I knew that feeling. And she didn't talk a whole lot, but she came to a lot of meetings. She asked questions. She got a sponsor who has a sponsor. She's worked the steps. She's had a total personality transformation. And it's such a joy to see that happen in someone that you care about so much. And every day it's more like she inspires me. And we used to say a lot to stick with the winners. She's a winner. So come tell us how you did it, Christa.
All right, well, I'm Christa and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 21st of 2020. And so, Lisa, thank you for asking me to speak tonight. I think it was pretty clever of you to ask you in front of our sponsor. But anyways, so I guess I will share a little bit about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And so in order for me to kind of do that, I kind of need to go to the beginning just for a little bit, because it's a big part of my story. So, I hear a lot of people say that they grew up in normal households and things like that. My childhood, my home that I grew up in was anything but normal. I was actually know the story about how I was conceived. I was my dad's 47th birthday present. There was a lot of alcohol involved, and my mom thought she had the flu at first, but turns out it was me. I have 3 older brothers. The youngest one, when I was born, was 14. I don't really know. I have 2 living siblings, but I don't really know them at all. They're in their late 50s now, and we don't keep in touch. But the reason why I know how I was conceived is because my mom apparently left her 4th step laying around in the house, and when I was in high school I found it, and I found that I was the number 1 person on her resentment list. And my mom made it very clear that I put a big old chink in her drinking chain. She was full-blown alcoholic, and having another baby was not part of her plan. And I remember being, 5 or 6 and walking into, I guess my parents were having an argument, and, I heard my mom say, I should have just gotten rid of her when I found out, I was pregnant. And that hurt a lot. And I grew up with that. And, the thing that I wanted, like, my whole entire childhood, was to have a mom that loved me. And, that wasn't what I saw. The way that things looked like in my house were, my dad he did the best job that he could do being both parents. But, it was a struggle, and so he would be off at work, and when I got home from school, my mom was the one who was there taking care of me. And that often would look like, like when I was in, I don't know, I guess preschool or maybe right before kindergarten. At the daycare we had, we were getting ready for a Mother's Day celebration, and the moms were going to come for a tea party, and so everybody made these placemats, And, so I made mine, and I was sitting there at the table waiting for my mom to come. I would see everybody else's moms come and eventually see them go, and I just sat there because mine never showed up. And that's how it went. When she did show up, she was very drunk. She drove with me a lot of times while she was drinking. She would write hot checks and bribe me with toys so I wouldn't tell Dad that, she had used that to go get more beer. But, of course, everybody knew it. And I don't remember anybody ever telling me, like, Christa, you need to pour out her drinks. Somehow that just came to me naturally, so I spent a lot of time pouring out her beer. Because what I knew as a small child is that once she put that in her body, she became a different person, and I didn't like that. So I wanted to get rid of whatever it was that she was drinking in that cup. And, as I got older, got into high school, I realized that my upbringing was very different than everybody else's. She got several DWIs. She fell down the stairs in our house and broke her ankle, and next thing I know, we're moving to a one-story house because getting rid of the stairs is what we do. But, all those years of just wanting my mom to love me, it took its toll. And, in high school, I was a daddy's girl, and my sophomore year in high school, my dad had a stroke. And that was a real scary thing for me because I thought, oh shit, like this is it. If something happens to him and I'm left with her, I don't know how this is gonna work out. And so I started going to therapy in high school. I spent a lot of time at school. I was one of those kids that was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities because more time away from home was what I wanted. I was a good kid. I really didn't get into any trouble, never skipped school. I drank once in high school. I think me and my friend got a hold of some, I don't even know what it was, some malt liquor, and I think I had one, and I just remember trying to eat some bread to soak it all up because I don't want to get in trouble. Because that's me. I ran cross country and track. I was pretty successful in that. I actually went to college on a cross country and track scholarship. And, this time, like my youngest brother was my mom's biggest drinking buddy. And over the years, he would go to rehab and come back, and my mom would move out with him, and, then he would come stay with us, and then they would just be drunk all the time. They would sit around, and I guess when I was looking at them, they would, look at me and say, "Don't worry, Christa, you're going to be just like us one day." And, that was not going to be my story. I was hell-bent on never becoming what my mom was, never doing the things to my kids that she did to me. So that kept me away from alcohol for a while. I went to college, and my freshman year in college, somebody that I really trusted, an adult, kind of took something from me that, that really rocked my world, like in a bad way. It changed me. I kind of felt like when I was growing up, that I felt like I was born a victim, like just from out of the gate, And as things started to happen, when I was taking advantage of my freshman year, that kind of was like a solidifying, okay, here it is. Yeah, this is me. I'm a piece of shit, you know? And so I started to treat myself that way. I actually ended up trying to take my own life 3 times. One time I was very near successful. I ended up at Maine Methodist downtown in the Med Center. Woke up in the ICU, and I don't remember what exactly happened, but you know, all this time, even in college, I wasn't drinking. It wasn't on my radar. And so after that, you know, because I'm engaging in a bunch of reckless behavior without alcohol, I ended up being blessed with my oldest daughter. And I had her when I was a junior in college. It didn't really stop me from doing anything. I never really skipped a beat. I graduated in 4 years and got my degree. I had met my husband, and we got married the weekend after I graduated. Let's see, so I graduated college in 2006, and shortly after my graduation, you know, my mom, when I really spiraled out of control my freshman year, my mom thought that the toll of what she had done to me when she was drinking was the cause for all of that, because I didn't tell them what had happened to me, and I let her believe that because I wanted to pay her back, because I hated her. But what happened after that is she got a wake-up call, and she decided to really try this sobriety thing. I don't remember a whole lot of her being in the program. I know that she had tried off and on throughout, you know, the time that I was in high school. And I remember things like being jealous of her sponsor because they would just be talking all the time. And I'm like, I just want to talk to my mom. You know, why doesn't she want to talk to me? But she was sober for a year, and then died from she died from COPD. And I was really angry at God because, you know, here was my mom. I was just getting to know her as a sober human being, and then she dies. And a year later, my brother, who was 37 at the time, who was a very, very active alcoholic, he actually, I will never forget the day that we had to take him to the hospital, but he showed up to a family function drunk as usual, but something wasn't quite right about that day. And he didn't look good. And we just knew that something was wrong. So we took him to Tomball Hospital, and it ended up that he had alcoholic cardiomyopathy. So he had drank his heart muscle to death. They had to put him on life support, and my dad was kind of he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and so he wasn't really in the right frame of mind to kind of make some decisions. So I helped him to make a decision to take my brother off of life support. And after, I remember I was there, you know, as they had taken him off, watching the numbers on the machine go down, and you know, then him finally passing. And the hospital was asking us a bunch of questions about, you know, next of kin. Does he have any, you know, what is it, who do we need to contact? And, you know, my brother didn't have anything. He had no spouse, no children. He had no job. He was, you know, just nothing. And that was a real, you know, for me, in my mind, what I thought an alcoholic was like my brother and my mom. And so that was 2007, and then a year later, the light of my world, my dad actually died. And it was like, whoa, now I'm an orphan, and I don't know these other two brothers. I have a small child, I'm married, but, the truth is, like, I never really grew up. I didn't know how to handle life. I always felt insecure. I was full of fear and had no clue why. I didn't know how to handle my emotions. Not that I really do today, but, it's kind of getting there. And so, after that, I was working I was a kindergarten teacher before I became a nurse. And I actually got pregnant with my second child, who's 14 now. And I decided, well, he got sick when he was a baby. He actually had a seizure disorder and some other things. He had to go through chemo for nearly a year when he was starting at 4 months old. And I decided I had to resign from teaching, and then I decided I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to give back, what the nurses had done for us all those months in the hospital. And so I went to nursing school. I was drinking maybe socially at this point. I was a social drinker for a minute. Because, after all those things were happening to me, and, just the back-to-back deaths, my son's illness, all these responsibilities I had no clue what to do with. I just didn't know what to do. And shortly after that, and definitely when I became a nurse, I discovered the magic of alcohol. And what I realized was that that transition from maybe a social drinker and throughout to a moderate drinker, heavy drinker, that progressed fairly quickly. I began to drink with the intent to forget about everything that had gone on and just to be okay. I was a functional alcoholic for a while. I was okay, definitely a daily drinker by the time I actually became a nurse and was working in the hospital. But I was drinking, after hours. When I got home from work, that was something that I definitely looked forward to, was that drink. I guess I don't know at what point, things for me changed really, but I do know that at one point in my nursing career, I decided to become a hospice nurse. And working and setting my own schedule and being able to get in my car and come and go as I want throughout the day, that was the perfect opportunity for me to engage in some daytime drinking. I went from a daily evening drinker, but it was never just one or two. It was half a case after work, to, maybe when I wake up in the middle of the night, I need something to help me go back to sleep. And then shortly after that, it was, I'm gonna, drink in the morning, but what I would tell myself is that it's still dark outside. So, 5 a.m., all right, it's not really morning, it's still dark. And, then towards the end, it was, I would fill my cup there that I have. I would carry, in the back of my car, I had a box wine with the spigot, and would fill my cup up with ice in the morning and just refill my cup throughout the day as I was going along, taking care of business, taking care of patients. I even got so bold once to bring my cup full of wine into a meeting with, our social worker, our chaplain, the rest of the nurses, sitting there during the meeting, drinking my wine, thinking, nobody is going to figure this out. I guess towards the end, I had somebody make a comment at my place of employment that maybe they could smell the alcohol like coming out of my pores. And I was like, well, that's weird. I don't know why you would think that, But I was still, pretty good at what I was doing. I thought I was taking good care of my patients. Hospice nursing, there's not a whole lot you can screw up. But, not proud of it. It's kind of cringy. But, I was doing so well in my job. There was this physician who got another job at a different hospice, and he wanted to bring me along to this new company that he was working for. And so this new company made this position for me, just because the doctor had said, you need to hire this nurse. And I went to go work for this company. It was pretty much the dream job. It was the best hospice company I've ever worked for. And things were looking great, except for my drinking. I don't know. I drink when things are bad. I drank when things were good. I drank just to put one foot in front of me. And, that really that was the end of my drinking. Before I get to the the day I got fired from my job, just want to touch on, some things that, some people have all these elaborate, drunk stories. Just for me, I guess what I think about is all the things that I swore I would never do that my mom did to me. I ended up doing the very same thing to my children. I would drive with them drunk. I would drink while they were in the car with me. One of my most memorable, or I think I remember it from what people told me, was, a time that I took my two kids to Splash Town, and they have a tiki bar there, and that was my favorite place to go. And so drinking there, I don't really remember what happened, but I woke up and there were police officers around me. I was missing my two front teeth, and my kids were scared to death. I made the excuse that, somebody must have spiked my drink, because I didn't think I had been drinking that much, but clearly if you black out, you had more than just one. I don't know how I didn't, end up going to jail that day or getting some sort of citation, but I didn't. They called my husband, and he came to pick me up. And there were a lot of times where I would drive somewhere somewhat sober, and I wouldn't end up driving myself home. He had to come and get me a lot of times when I had my kids with me. Let's see, so I'm doing these things, trying to be a mom. Was never really there for my kids. You know, I was maybe in the same room, but wasn't ever really able to be present with them because all my mind was thinking about was, you know, how am I going to get that next drink? Certainly always thinking about myself. Didn't really know how to engage with them or connect with them. And although I went through the motions, you know, as if I was a fairly decent, you know, showed up for them for things. You know, I may have been intoxicated, but, you know, I was doing what alcoholics do, you know. And so what I call like the part of my drinking career is like towards the end, the last year. I tell, like in my mind, I think of it as that's when I started to like actively die. In July of 2019, at this new awesome hospice company I was working for, I had a really difficult assignment to do one day, and of course I was already, you know, pre-gaming it before I went to work, and then after this really difficult thing that I had to do, I, instead of finishing up my charting or doing anything that I needed to do, I headed to the bar and spent several hours drinking there. I realized that, I had a meeting with my supervisor at 3 p.m. and oh shit, I had missed it because I'm at the bar drinking. And so I thought, I ended up going to a family member's house and just unloading on her. I was really upset from, you know, my work duties that day, and she offered me a glass of wine. I told her that, you know, ensured her that that's all I had had that day. And then I thought it was a really good idea to contact my supervisor and go and actually meet her at her house to kind of go over the things that we were going to go over in the meeting that I had missed. And so after work, or after the close of business hours, I drove to her house so drunk that I got lost in her neighborhood. I blamed it on my GPS that wasn't working, and she actually had to come meet me a couple streets away and escort me to her home. And I don't really remember a whole lot, except she asked me, you know, have you been drinking? And I said, well, I stopped at my aunt's house and, you know, I had a glass of wine. And of course she did not believe that. She went inside and made some phone calls, and next thing I know, my husband is at her house there to pick me up. That next day, I went to work and got called into the office. They sat me down and said, we have reason to believe that you were impaired while you were working. And I told them the story. I said, well, it was, you know, I just had a glass of wine, and that was after work, you know. And they said, well, we're going to have you go down to this drug testing place and you know, do a test there. And this was probably about 10:30 in the morning, so I thought, I don't know what I was thinking, because I did drink that morning too. So, but I showed up to the drug testing place, and they had me do a breathalyzer, and I'd never had to do one of those before, but I blew into it, and it, you know, they could tell that I had been drinking. I guess the cutoff point for their test was like 0.020 or something, and mine was 0.019. And so they asked me, they said, you know, have you been drinking? And I said, well, last night, you know, but that message got back to my director of nursing, and they asked me, they told me that they were going to report me to the Board of Nursing, and they wanted me to meet with their physician or medical director as a patient and go talk to him. And so I did, okay, I'll go see this doctor. And I remember in that conversation, he asked me, all I could hear was him saying, are you ready to stop drinking? I thought, well, like during business hours? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like at home on the weekends, like my family's Polish and German, like we drink a lot. I mean, I don't know about that. And so what I said to him was, no, I'm not. And the next day is when they told me that they're, going to terminate me. I had to turn in my things, my name badge, my iPad, all that good stuff. And I quickly went and found a new job that same day. So I thought, okay, I lost a job, but I've got a new one. And of course, I didn't tell the new employers why I had been, why I'm looking for a job right now. And then on the way home from that interview, I thought the next best thing to do would be to go stop at a bar. Because after all, I'd just gotten fired. And so I remember my husband, he was tracking me on my phone by this time. That happened probably the last couple of years in our marriage. But I remember him reaching out to me that day, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, you're at a bar. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. I just got fired. Give me some time to deal with this, He's like, yeah, you just got fired from drinking on the job, but that's what I did. I did end up hiring a nurse lawyer, and my case ended up actually in the end getting dismissed. They said that I may have exhibited impaired behavior, but they didn't have any actual evidence that I violated any of the Nurse Practice Act. So, I would think, that would be a good thing to try to, maybe I should think about this drinking thing, but that's not my story. I was in so much denial and delusion that I didn't think drinking was my problem. I thought if you had, the problems that I had, if you, had lost almost your entire family, if you had a son that was sick, if you had this stressful job, you would drink just like me. And I would surround myself with people who kind of drank like me, so they wouldn't have to say anything about it. But, I found as time went on, my standards just kept getting lower and lower. I remember the biggest lie that I told my kids and my husband was, I'm just going for a drink. I told them that more times than I care to admit. Because it never was just one. I ended up, out way later than I should, doing things that I should not be doing. Was never home for the family dinner. My husband was kind of playing both roles as well. And so, that was a lot. So that's July 2019. I'm in a new job now. I'm still drinking. I am still drinking during the day, at least in the morning. Sometimes I would go out during lunch and, fill my cup up and partake in that before the afternoon clinic started. And then, by this time, things in my life were very unmanageable, even though I was not able to see that. The part in the big book where it talks about, they're a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They do tragic and absurd things while drinking, but are sensible in every other aspect. That was kind of like me. And the more that I drank, the more tragic those things were that I did. I put alcohol ahead of everything that I cared about, everything that I loved. It owned me. And all I could think about was, do I have enough? How am I going to get enough? Those sorts of things. And my marriage suffered because of that. And of course, I didn't think it was my drinking. I just thought maybe, I don't know what I was thinking. But I was so lonely. And I ended up in December of 2019, somebody that from my past had reached out to me, and we were commiserating in our lonely, unhappy marriages, and he had all the right words to say. And I, one morning, instead of going to work, I, drinking as usual, but drinking a whole lot more, I decided to meet up with him. And, so I threw away my marriage. I was married for 13 years. We were together for about 16 years. And so December 17th, that was the beginning of the very end. I got kicked out of the house right away because, I'm too drunk to leave my cell phone somewhere where he couldn't find it, and, there was evidence on there. And so here I was, before Christmas, no longer in my home, no longer with my children, and I have no family, so what am I going to do? Let's see, I decided, so I came in here my first time on January 4th of 2020. The night before, I was kind of sofa surfing at a friend's house. Like I didn't have anywhere to stay, so I stayed at this friend's house, and I was still drinking. I was really drunk that night and decided to create a fake profile on Facebook and pose as like my soon-to-be ex-husband's ex-girlfriend, because I was going to catch him on something, because, it wasn't my fault that our marriage fell apart. And her first name was Molly, but I couldn't even spell the name right in the profile. And so I sent him a message and, hey, what's up? And, of course he started writing back. And he just said, yeah, I'm no longer, with my wife. We're separated. She's a drunk and she needs to go to AA. That was tough. So the next morning I woke up and I was like, something has got to give. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I Googled AA groups near me, and the Cypresswood group popped up. It was a Saturday morning, so there was a women's meeting at 9 a.m. I remember in the Google results, it said, one of them said, is AA a cult? I don't know, but I walked into the women's meeting. I never circled the parking lot. I didn't come in and kind of, stake you guys out. I came in, I sat right at the table. I couldn't stop crying the entire time. I told you all that I was a newcomer. And after that meeting, a whole bunch of people asked for my phone number, and I willingly gave it to them. They gave me this packet and all that, and that all I could remember them saying was, keep coming back. And that whole day, they wouldn't leave me alone. Like, calling me and texting me, and it was like this group text with like 30 people on it. I'm like, oh my God, it really is a cult. So, and I'm like, they said keep coming back. And so there was a 6 p.m. meeting that night. And so I was going to come back because I was going to tell you all that maybe I overthought this. Cancel my subscription. I don't want to have to change my phone number, but this leave me alone. But what happened was when I walked into that meeting, I saw somebody there who I had not seen in about, 8 or 9 years at that point. I recognized her from nursing school. We went to nursing school together, and I was like, I don't know, this is supposed to be anonymous. Am I supposed to, say that I know you? I don't know the rules here, but she kind of took me under her wing and, would end up becoming, my first sponsor. And, gosh, that was January 4th. 2 weeks later, I got served divorce papers, and that would be the beginning of like a really nasty, ugly custody battle, because he was going to try to take my kids away from me. And, I don't have any money. I don't have any savings. I don't have a credit card. I had no place to live. And, so I was coming here. I was trying to get what you guys were trying to tell me and follow the suggestions, and then COVID happened, and it was tough. I mean, getting divorced and kind of essentially being homeless, and then a pandemic, all these things that I'd never done before. It was a lot, but you guys helped me through it. I learned one of the most important lessons from my first sponsor, and in the end of March that year, as she was helping me move out of my married home, along with several of the other people in here, her husband was tragically killed that night. And what she showed me is that you can stay sober no matter what. And I needed to see that because I too had lost my spouse in a different way, but it was a loss. And so we traveled that journey together. The first few months in here, it was hard for me to really get this thing. Where it says in We Agnostics that you can see the hope rise on the new man's face as they talk of the alcoholic troubles and, the fellowship. And then you can see his face fall when they mention God. That was kind of my story, because I didn't not think that there wasn't a God. I just didn't think that I was worthy. I didn't think that would work for me. And so I thought that was going to be a real problem. And that was a struggle. And, I struggled with this thing. It was, about 6 months before things kind of just all came together. I prayed a lot at the beginning about willingness. That was a big thing for me. And I had to start praying, for the willingness to be willing. That's how it started. And it took me a long time for my head to catch up with my heart. I knew inside that I was just like you guys, but I couldn't get honest with myself. And finally, one day in May, I was doing the work. I went to go do my 5th step, and my sponsor asked me, is there anything that, you were planning on not telling me? This is right when we started, and I don't know, for whatever reason, it just came out of my mouth. I said, yes, I've been drinking this whole time. And I thought, oh God, is she gonna make me start all over? And she didn't. And I think that was one of the things that really made a difference, because if I had to start all over, I don't think I'd be here. Because that would have been my ticket to go back out and drink. Because it just was so hard to even get to that point. But from that day forward, things were never the same. Everything that has happened in here, and some of us get it a little bit more slow than others. This program and working the steps, and finding a relationship with God has been the most important thing. And it's been a journey. I have never laughed so hard in my life, but I also have never cried so hard in my life either. Because in here, once you don't have that ability to numb your feelings with alcohol, that's tough. Trying to deal with those emotions that I never knew what to do with them. And so it wasn't always easy. There were a lot of times that, I leaned on, my sponsor, I leaned on you guys. There were a lot of crying out in the parking lot, just things that I never thought I'd be able to do. And you guys were always there with me. Going through the divorce, I had this breathalyzer thing that I had to breathe in, every day, especially when I had my kids. I mean, just all those things that I had to do to kind of make sure I wasn't going to lose my kids. We were going to go to trial for our divorce. That's how ugly it got. But it ended up, working out where we went to our second mediation, and we God stepped in, and my ex-husband and I were able to work things out. And, we came to a really good agreement that today has been one of the biggest gifts about all of that. I know I don't have my kids all of the time, but I also, I do get to see them. It's almost 50-50 custody, but the times that I don't have my kids is when have the ability to kind of focus on this program. And shortly before my first birthday, I don't know, I came to, and I'm like, oh, I have dreams? What is this? And I decided to go back to school. And that process worked out so easily. Everything fell into place. And that wouldn't be possible if, I were still drinking, if I wasn't working a program, if I didn't have a relationship with my God. And many of you know, last week, and I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And Monday, I actually start grad school. So these are all things that, I didn't think were possible. What did I want to say? I don't know. it's just been so surreal lately. It was really important for me last weekend when we went to graduation for me to go to a meeting the night before, because I've found that as long as I put this program first, everything else falls into place. And, you know, I go to a lot of meetings. I'm working, you know, with my sponsor. I try to carry the message. I've had the opportunity to work with a few women all throughout this, you know, going to school, being a mom, a single mom, living on my own for the first time in my entire life. You know, that's all a direct result of this program and from my relationship with God. I have found one other thing that I've learned about myself, I guess, in finding God, I've found myself. And I have realized that when I'm of service is when I feel most connected to God. And so I have, you know, really made that a big part of my life. And I am involved, you know, with things that go on outside of this room. At the district and area level, I take the intergroup phones one night a month. So every drunk in Houston has my phone number from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. And some really cool stuff has happened through all of that. You know, the people that I've been able to connect with has just been, it's been so amazing to answer that phone and have somebody tell me, you know, a little bit about themselves and explain, you know, I'm a, you know, flight attendant and I'm drinking on the job. You know, you just don't understand. You know, like they're expecting me to like have not heard these things before. And I, you know, just remember telling this one gentleman, I'm like, no, I do understand. I get it. And he was just shocked at that. You know, I try to carry the message whenever I can, and that has helped me a lot. And of course, staying plugged in with the fellowship is really important. I don't know, I kind of blanked out towards the end, but I don't know, the way that all this worked, for me to not think that this would ever work for me, I didn't really think that I was an alcoholic really when I came here. I came here to prove to my ex-husband that I wasn't an alcoholic. But like I said, once I got out of the delusion and realized that I too was just like everybody else. I may not have done the same sort of things, but the thinking was the same. And I keep doing those things because I don't want to end up like my brother. I want to live, I want to be happy, joyous, and free. And I want to be able to help whenever I can. So it's really important for me to protect my sobriety whenever, at all costs. Sobriety comes first for me. I know that I have another drink in me, but I don't know if I have another sobering up in me. And I don't want to find that out. It scares the shit out of me. So my sponsor tells me that as long as I keep doing the things that I'm doing, chances are that the next day is going to be just like the one before, if not better. So I think I'll keep coming back, and I think that's all I have.